I'm going to, so it's connecting now and it is recording, and I see attendees are starting to come in. So we'll give everyone a chance to come in. So, okay, hold on a moment. Okay. And I hope you all got to see the agenda. Okay, so I see people are coming in. All right, so here's Bob. I'm going to, all right, there. I'm bringing Bob in as a panelist. For some reason, he was not on. There he is. Okay. All right, so I'm letting attendees come in slowly. We also have Christina here. Christina just arrived, and here is Bob Gelber. Okay, so Christina and Bob, if you two are gonna, if you could unmute yourselves and introduce yourselves to our panelists, that would be great.
Good evening. My name is Christina Lombardi. I'm a board member at large, and I'm the chairperson of the Government Relations Committee.
Okay, and Bob, if you could introduce yourself too.
Bob Gelber, I'm vice president, and I'm also on the education committee. Welcome to our meeting.
And Deb, Deb, you didn't have a chance to introduce yourself before.
Hi, I'm still Deborah, and I make stuff and listen.
Yeah, Deborah's one of our board members at large. And I see Kelly Curtin also just signed in. So Kelly, welcome, welcome. I'm Emma, I'm the president of the Guides Association, and got a whole bunch of us here. And so yes, so I can see Jeremy already put some reminders into the chat for our attendees. We're up to 88 now, I believe. At least 95 have already registered. And then we'll have more coming in. Okay, so, all right. Just a few things. Okay. So the numbers are still going up. I'm going to give everybody just 2 more minutes. To make sure you're all set. And this is recording. Okay, oh, thank you, John, for sending the agenda again. All right. And John just put the link to the agenda in.
Emma, did that work?
Yeah, that was working just fine. Mm-hmm. I think so. I think it should be working just fine. All right. Oops, try again. John, I think it only went to the panelists. Okay, oh, we have a visitor here from DC. And yes, the agenda was emailed to everyone. Okay, so why don't we get started? I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. This is going to be I think an interesting evening. We've got a lot of great things to talk about and really a wonderful group of panelists. So thank you all for coming. Thank you all for attending. Now, just a few things to get a little housekeeping out of the way, just to remind you all again, this is a webinar, so only the panelists are visible. We have, now we're at 115 participants. And so we have a list of participants here, but only, again, the panelists will be visible. Please make sure to use the Q&A for questions to the panelists. You can use the chat for general comments and general questions, and especially once the panelists are finished, and Jeremy and the rest of the board will also be monitoring that, and so we're keeping an eye on that for general commentary. Now, the committee reports have all been submitted electronically. They will be posted to the GANYC website. We will not be reading committee reports tonight because we have a full set of panelists and a lot of great things to talk about. But just a few announcements about that. Dave Gardner, our newsletter editor, has the deadline for submission to guidelines to our newsletter is June 28th. you can send your submission to newsletter@ganyc.org. And then speaking of submissions, Christina Lombardi, who edits our weekly Virgil, which is our sort of guide for guides, she is always welcoming submissions from members. If you want to tell the story of how you became a guide, if you have some photographs of our city, you're welcome to send those in. We love recipes, we love funny stories, we love you know, as I said, recipes, food and drink are very, very welcome. And so we are always happy to get that from you. And you can just send that right to the board. Just send it to board@ganyc.org. Okay, so that, you know, you're all welcome. You're all welcome to do that. And I hope the Virgil is useful. We will be running the Virgil through, definitely through, still on a weekly basis, through the end of June, and then we will see what we need to do, whether we send it, go back to the biweekly e-blast that we were sending out prior to the start of COVID-19, and then we'll see about that, and we'll go from there. But really, you can always refer to it. Again, send suggestions to board@ganyc.org. And if you've missed any editions of it, they are on the GANYC website. When you open the website, you go to the COVID-19 up in the little member, the menu up at the top, and you'll find them all listed there. And they're also posted in documents. And for any of our panelists, if you're interested, you can also receive it, and you're welcome to subscribe. It's a sort of a fun way for us to communicate with everybody. So that said, that out of the way, it's really hard to figure out sometimes what to say to everybody. And I just love watching the numbers go up and know that there are over 120 GANYC members and guests who are here this evening. And I just have to let you know how much I appreciate this. And I appreciate all of you for coming here. And of course, our wonderful panelists too. I think if I didn't have GANYC, I would be doing a lot more baking and a lot more cooking than I'm already doing, and that's quite a bit anyway. But you all are inspiring me every day to try to do better, try to do more, and try to really reach out and help to do what I can for the guiding community and for our city. And so, speaking of our city, I mean, just when we thought, you know, a plague was bad enough, now we have this terrible looting and violent protests taking place in the midst of what should be peaceful protests, a peaceful right of people to assemble and to have their voices heard. And these are voices that have been pushed aside, who've been partially heard, who've just been given lip service, and things, as we all know, throughout our country have just been boiling over. And it's so hard to see. I know it's hard for you, those of you who are in the city, and I'm from my little island out here in Jersey. I mean, I'm just across the river, and I was in on Monday, and when it already seemed desolate and sad, it seems even worse seeing places boarded up and friends whose restaurants were damaged and people who do not feel safe walking the streets. And now, of course, the curfew in the city that never sleeps. It did not seem possible that that would happen, but here we are. And so how do we move forward? What do we do next? And as I said in the Virgil, you know, we can listen, we need to listen, and we need to speak up, we need to act, we need to take action. And speaking only for myself, I have to say I'm really trying to use this as a moment to learn and to grow and to realize that I'm incredibly privileged just already. And I've been going through the quarantine in a very privileged, comfortable kind of setting. So I've been that, but just I've been privileged really my whole life. And so many people have not had those advantages. And so I need to check my privilege, and I need to listen more. I need to learn to listen more. I need to learn to take into account what I've done and my mistakes and try to improve from them. And I hope that GANYC can also improve. Okay, we have, our demographics tend to skew a little older, shall we say, and we're, guides are a quirky bunch anyway, but I think we need to reach out more, reach out to communities of color, get to know our neighbors in a different way, and get to know our city in a different way, and appreciate it for its diversity, not paying lip service to its diversity, but really, really digging deep and reaching out. And so I hope this is making sense, because it's really spoken from the heart. I try to take some notes and write some things down, but that's all long gone. It's just really me saying to all of you, let's try harder, let's do better, let's get out there, let's make our voices heard, let's protest with our social distancing, I guess, as much as we can. I want to wrap everybody up in plastic and make as more masks than I've been already sewing like mad, and really do what we can and really try to be aware. I mean, even just looking at all our panelists, we're all one pale color here, and we need to diversify more. And so, and this is an appeal also to GANYC members themselves. Join the board, be active, be proactive. Let us know what you need, let us know what you want, let us know how we can help and how we can continue this dialogue in a really productive way, and move forward from this, and move forward in a better way, and have GANYC grow as well. So, sort of stepping off my soapbox, welcome you all again to our June meeting. And so we're going to start with our panelists, and we're really honored to have Fred Dixon with us here this evening. And Fred is the President and CEO of NYC and Company, and he will be doing a presentation for us, and Mike Morgenthau actually will be moderating the discussion. So Fred and Mike, if you want to unmute yourselves, and I'm ready to share the screen and to show the presentation whenever you are. So go right ahead, guys. Thank you so much.
So before Fred, you jump in, I just want to say thank you so much. We know how incredibly busy you've been ever in normal life, let alone since the pandemic struck, and we appreciate everything that you and NYC and Company is doing to try to bring tourism back to the city. I just want to read a brief bio of you that I found on your LinkedIn page, if you don't mind, just so people have a little bit of a background on you, and then we'll launch right in to your presentation. With over 23 years of experience in the travel industry, Fred Dixon has the overall responsibility for developing and implementing New York City's tourism, marketing, and convention development strategy internationally, as well as in domestic, leisure, and business markets. Joining NYC and Company in 2005, Fred has led the aggressive and successful expansion of the city's international marketing efforts. A respected and valued leader in a global industry with positions on travel industry association boards and planning committees, Fred has served on boards including the U.S. Travel Association, IPW Planning Committee, National Tour Association, Tourism Cares, Student and Youth Travel Association, and was nominated as a city appointment to the board of the Javits Center Operating Corporation. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here's Fred Dixon.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's great to be with you. I see so many friendly faces and folks that I've been in the trenches with over the years, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. I want to start off by saying, the guides play such an important role in our tourism economy. You know that better than anyone. You're the front line of our city. You're the ambassadors to the public at large. And my goal in life, I don't know if any of you heard me say this, some of you have, is I want a GANYC membership card. Because my goal is to be a guide when this is all over. And I want to do what you all do every day and show people from around the world and from around the corner the beauty of every nook and corner of this amazing city that we call home. So we're going to get to that. So thank you for letting me be with you today. It is a real honor to be with you all. And thank you for that nice introduction, Michael. And I got to thank Monica, my right hand, who wrote that introduction on LinkedIn. Those were kind words, and I do appreciate that. I want to start off by acknowledging my colleague, Kelly Curtin, our head of membership and services, who's on the call with me. And many of you, of course, know Kelly and have worked with her over the years. And I also want to remind you that you have a voice in our organization, in Harvey Paul Davidson. And we work closely with Harvey Paul, of course. And I've known Harvey since I moved here to New York in 2002. He was one of the very first people that I ever worked with back in the day when I first moved here from Nashville. And so it's great to still be working with so many of the same people over the many years. And Michael, it's been a joy to work with you too. And look, we have a lot of work to do ahead of us. This is going to be a long road to recovery. And I wish I could tell you that it was going to be a short one. But I think you all have been at these ropes long enough to know that when things come unraveled the way that they have, it takes time to weave them back together. And Emma, I want to buy one of your masks, by the way. If you send me your link to your Etsy shop, I'm in the market for some new masks. But hopefully, if you want, Emma, if you want to put up the slides now, I can just walk you all through what's been going on. So what seems like an eternity, and in reality, as you all know, in this new strange time that we live in, you know, it's only been since the middle of March that things have deteriorated to the point that they're in. But over that period, we have been working behind the scenes at every level of government to advocate for the travel and tourism industry writ large, businesses both small and large, to make sure that everyone is aware that tourism needs to be at the forefront of the conversation for the recovery. Many of you I know on this call were with us, you know, in the early 90s when there was the first attack at the World Trade Center, after 9/11, of course, in 2008 with the Great Recession, and of course, Hurricane Sandy or Superstorm Sandy. We have been through a lot, you know, and as I know you all often talk about, I was a history major in college, part of why I want to be a tour guide. You know, the city's obituary has been written many times over the years, and everyone is anxious to write the next one. But the city defies that, and we're going to defy it again. We've taken a punch. There's no question. I can't candy coat that in any way, and we're trying to be very transparent with everyone, with the local business community, with independent contractors, with the government, and with the public and media writ large. That this is going to be probably the defining struggle of most of our professional careers, is getting New York City back up on its feet. And by the way, we're doing it at the same time that every other destination in the globe is attempting to do the same thing. So it is a complete reset in every sense of the word. But I do want to thank Harvey Paul for his service on our board, and he and Michael's constant advocacy for you, and Emma as well. You have great leadership, and I want to thank them for what they're doing. And I hope this is not the last time that I'm with you all in the short term. I'm happy to come back at any point. Emma, if you want to go to the next slide. Of course, you all know hopefully who we are. We are the official destination marketing organization and Convention and Visitors Bureau for the 5 boroughs of New York City. Some people think of us as a city agency. We're actually not a city agency, so I always like to correct the record. We're a 501c6 nonprofit organization. We've been around since 1935, if you want to drop that into any of your narratives. But we've had many iterations over the years. Those of you that have been with us for a long time may remember the New York City Convention and Visitors Bureau. That existed until 1998-99 when NYC & Company became the new name. And then Mayor Bloomberg joined us with the City Sports Commission, the City Marketing Office, and the City Big Events team, the host committee, if you remember, that did the bidding for the Olympics. Joined us all together, kept the NYC & Company name, and we're now the new destination marketing organization that you all know and hopefully work with today. We are a private membership organization, somewhat like GANYC. We have about 2,000 member companies across the 5 boroughs that provide about half of our funding. So we're a little bit unique in terms of tourism boards. Some around the country receive a percentage of hotel occupancy tax. I wish that were the case here in the boom days, but unfortunately that's never been the case here in New York as much as we've advocated for it. We are a flat line in the mayor's budget. We have a contract for service that's managed by the Small Business Services Administration, SBS. And we work arm in arm with City Hall, but we're not a city agency and we're not city employees. But we advocate for, convene, and champion New York City's tourism and hospitality organizations and represent all 5 boroughs around the world. Looking at the next slide, Emma, you'll see here the Coalition for Hospitality and Tourism Recovery was created just in the last really 30 days to represent the broad swath of the tourism and hospitality industry beyond our membership, recognizing that there needs to be a body that's advocating strongly beyond just the NYC & Company's capability to do it for itself. So we reach back into the history books, into the leaders of this organization over the many, many years. You'll see on the right side of the page, the 3 living past chairmen of the NYC & Company's board of directors, Tim Zagat, John Tisch of Lowe's Hotels, and of course, Emily Rafferty, who is our immediate past chairman, the President Emerita for the Metropolitan Museum. Our current chairman is Charlie Flateman. You don't see him listed here, but he is the current chairman of the board of NYC & Company from the Schubert organization, their EVP of Business Development. But using the experience of the past three chairmen, and some of you may recall New York Rising, which was the last coalition NYC & Company stood up after 9/11, and that was under the leadership of John Tisch as chairman. So this new entity, this new effort is very much in the vein of New York Rising. We've tapped 5 co-chairs from across the various sectors of our industry to help guide the work that the coalition is going to undertake. That's Ellen Potter, as you see, Thelma Golden of the Studio Museum, who is a personal hero of mine, Danny Meyer, another hero I know of many of us in Union Square Hospitality. Lin-Manuel Miranda has lent his voice and his name to this effort, and a terrific advocate for not only Broadway, of course, but for neighborhoods. And he and his family, of course, are behind the Northern Manhattan Arts Alliance. Many of you may know that. His father, Louis Miranda, is on our board. And then Peter Ward, of course, the head of the New York City Hotel Trades Council, representing labor and the biggest labor group in hospitality. The next page, you'll see the steering committee that this group chose, again, representing a broad swath of the industry to serve. This is another committee alongside the other committees that NYC & Company currently is managing under our board of directors. So we have a hotel committee, we have a restaurant committee, we have an attractions and cultural committee, and now we have the steering committee for the coalition. And this, of course, is a representation of businesses, both large and small. And these are all folks that represent individual properties or organizations and businesses from across the 5 boroughs, representing the older generation of business leaders and the younger, newer generation, people like John Wang of the Queens Night Market, Anthony Ramirez of the Bronx Beer Hall, Lakshmi Prasad, the founder of Accessible Travel NYC, who some of you may know Lakshmi. She's an influencer in the accessible travel space and does some tour guiding, I believe, of her own. And she's been a great advisor to us throughout the years. And with the next slide, if you will, you'll see here, of course, the allied organizations. Allied organizations are other peer groups that have memberships of their own. So this is where you'll see yourselves listed, the Guides Association of New York City, and Michael listed as your representative here in this group. We're having a meeting tomorrow of this body. So this is the broad swath of organizations that have their own membership and often have their own agendas to represent their very specific niches. And we're proud to have such a diverse group here, from organizations like Visit Staten Island and some of the iconic bids across the city like the Times Square Alliance and the Downtown Alliance, but also the Broadway League and the Broadway Association. And you'll see the Council of Fashion Designers of America, who are the producers of Fashion Week, have joined arms with us. You'll also see, in addition to the bids, you'll also see some of the major sports organizations like New York Roadrunners and the U.S. Tennis Association. So we're really thrilled to have all of these guys on board for this conversation. They're going to help serve as amplifiers for the work that we are undertaking. And we're going to attempt to wrangle all of their energy and ideas and inertia and energy to help propel this coalition in our industry forward. If you want to go to the next page, Emma. I don't have to tell this group what's at stake. You all know it. You feel its loss at this moment as much as any of us. Last year was our 10th record year of tourism growth in this city, 66 million visitors, creating $70 billion in economic activity that is all at jeopardy right now. That economic activity has fueled the growth of 400,000 jobs, now representing 9% of New York City employment across the 5 boroughs. We have to work hard to get all of those jobs back. And of course, $6.7 billion in local tax revenue. That's just the city and the state taxes. And when we look at what our industry contributes to the local economy, and you look at what it contributes to government in particular, you'll see there on the right, because of hospitality and tourism, we save every household $2,100 in taxes a year. So without the $6.7 billion in tax revenue from the to the city and the state, each household tax burden would go up exponentially. And unfortunately, we're facing that reality in the very near term. And of course, tax revenue goes to support all of the essential services that we need, especially right now, first responders, education, transit, and other things across the city that's funded by the general fund of the city of New York. If you look at the next slide, Emma, the purpose of this coalition, and this is broken basically into 2 buckets: committed to public health and safety, anchored in our experience with great New York City comebacks, and that hints to the deep experience of crisis recovery that we as a community have experienced, that we have gone through, that we're pulling on right now, in terms of the leadership from the community to help us solve this problem. And of course, what we're going to do is help chart the new path back to reconnecting all of us to the city that we love. Next slide, if you would, Emma. And we are planning for the city's emergence. So you're going to see from us, help guided by the steering committee and the allied organizations, very soon a blueprint for recovery that's going to outline the steps in tandem with the city's phases. And I'm going to talk to you about that in just a moment. But this is where we begin to pull back into existence the demand generators that we all need to get back to work. Helping the arts and cultural organizations get back on their feet, helping Broadway figure out when can they come back. You know, it's interesting, I have a lot of conversations with the media and they all want to look at Broadway as the greatest hallmark for when New York City tourism is back. And while the Broadway in many ways is the crown jewel of tourism in New York, always has been, it's been one of our greatest advantages, we can rebuild tourism before Broadway returns. And that's a real concern from a lot of folks. You know, you've heard Charlotte St. Martin, the head of the Broadway League, and many in the Broadway community talk about the real challenges that they're facing with the built environment and getting Broadway back up and actors back on the boards on the Great White Way. In many ways, it may be one of the last phases in terms of recovery. So how do we get visitors coming back to New York, create economic stimulus, get you guys back to work in a New York City that doesn't have Broadway back yet? Those are the things that we're planning for, and we're going to be working with all of you and recognizing that this is going to be a long road. Many of the economic forecasts that you look at, other pundits and prognosticators, you know, everyone is looking for the crystal ball. Many of them are saying, you know, especially if you look at the airlines, you know, some are saying that demand will not go back to where it was in 2019 until 2023 or 24. So it is going to be a slow build because, as you all are aware, we're also facing a serious economic retraction at the same time. So lots of issues on the plate, and we're going to be working on all of them together. Next slide, if you would, Emma. Looking at the coalition's goals, these are really in 4 buckets. You know, moving from shutdown to reopening is going to be a process, and drawing on the experience and innovation of everyone in our community. We're working right now to inform the strategy, and this is where we're pulling on both our board of directors, other organizations like this one, but also government and civic organizations to help inform the strategy. So that's happening across the board right now. That's why presentations like this are important, so we can engage you and make sure we're collecting your ideas and input. We're also taking this moment to talk to our city-to-city partners around the world. You know, we're not alone in this, of course, and other cities are ahead of us in some sense in this crisis. We're talking to our partners in Madrid and in Berlin and in Amsterdam and in Milan, also in Shanghai and in Tokyo. These are all cities where we have tourism agreements for partnership, and that includes best practice sharing, and we're pulling on those right now. So using all of that experience and collective wisdom to help inform our own strategy and help others form a strategy for the globe. We're reimagining the experience right now, and this is gonna be where I think you all are gonna be able to help us flesh out a lot of material. You've seen the phases that have been announced by the governor. We're working on them now to figure out exactly how can we move some of our important constituents up further. Advocating for you all is an important part of that. You know, depending on who you ask, you know, we can start reconvening groups for tours. If you're in the larger group business, you know, in phase 4, depending on what the size of the group is. But some are saying, you know, we might be able to move things up into phase 3 or phase 2. So we are pledging to you today that we are going to work with you to help advance that and do what we can to help reimagine the experience for a new normal in New York with health and safety in mind. As long as we're in an environment where we're dealing with this virus, and there isn't any concrete news yet about the timeline for the vaccine or any of the advanced treatments, we have to learn to live with it, and that's going to require a completely new experience for tourism, so we can get people back out spending again, engaging with neighborhoods, engaging with New Yorkers, and getting cash registers ringing again across the board. That's going to be important, and we have to find a way to do that even in the absence of a vaccine. And that's where our health experts are going to come in. You probably saw on the steering committee, Lee Perlman, the head of the New York City Hospital Association, the Greater New York Hospital Association, that is. Lee has been a terrific advocate and a partner, and he is putting to bear the best medical minds and experience in their community to help us figure out the health and safety plan. And we're seeing some other destinations do this. I encourage you to visit Asheville, North Carolina. Actually has a really interesting plan that they've already put out, which is a health and safety pledge that, and it contains pieces that not only the business community for commitments, but also the public. And so it's saying, here's our pledge. Here's what we're going to do to protect you and to restore confidence in our destination. Here's what we ask you to do to help restore, to help us ensure that safety. One of the conversations that we've been having is how do we begin to tell the story of how New York flattened the curve? It isn't for anything, the fact that we have brought the virus from such a high level down to where it is today. We did that through the sweat and the tears of what is the most impressive, the best healthcare set of professionals in the world. The medical expertise that's right here in New York is as good as any you'll find anywhere on the planet. And they did that. And we did that as a public in it, following the guidance from the governor and others and the mayor, donning masks, staying home, doing what we needed to do to address the situation. And we want to be able to say to the world, because of the sacrifices that we've made, because of the expertise that's here, New York City is one of the safest places on the planet for you to visit. So that is key to restoring the confidence in the traveling public. It's key to restoring the confidence to our workforce. But we need to take comfort in the fact that we have done this, and that with smart guidance and with the right procedures in place, we can get back to work and we can begin to attract people to our city and renew their confidence. That feeds into the next bucket, which is rebuilding confidence in the place. This is where we're really going to be pivoting to that safest city messaging and getting back our welcome message into the community and beginning to rebuild demand again. And then, of course, the final phase is the larger promotion, enticing travelers back to our city. I think you all have probably figured this out. Tourism is going to be very hyper local in the beginning. It literally is going to be about reconnecting us New Yorkers with our city, resewing the fabric of our community, encouraging people to get back out into restaurants, whether it's just for modified takeout or delivery. What is the arts and cultural organizations going to look like? Who's going to be able to open up first? Many of them are already lobbying the governor to open sooner. This is going to be a very neighborhood forward effort. This is not necessarily going to be about Times Square first. This is a real opportunity to take the experiences of the past many days and the systemic injustices and racism that we have seen laid bare over the last many days, and the tragic death and murder of George Floyd, to reframe the conversation about our neighborhoods, to use the tour guides in this particular situation. You're supremely situated to help us explore our neighborhoods and put the neighborhoods again at the forefront of the conversation, move the affected communities from the background to the foreground. So there's a lot of work we have to do here, but there's also a lot of opportunity to put things back, but also put things back in an even better way and tell the stories that the world wants to see. Show the world that New York is back, why New York is still the greatest city in the world, while we have done, how we have done a miraculous thing in conquering this virus in this short amount of time, and how we're going to make New York City safe to visit again. But it's going to be a long road. The next slide, if you would, Emma, and I'll be wrapping up shortly here, is the audiences and vehicles that we're going to do that. And when we talk about audiences, you already have heard me talk about our members and our partners, people like GANYC and organizations like GANYC and the allies, but also consumers in those concentric circles, the travel trade, meeting and event organizers, the press and media, and of course, government at every level. And we're going to be using our members' channels. We're going to ask you all to help us amplify this messaging. We're going to be creating toolboxes and creative messaging and campaigns that you all can get behind. Hopefully you've already seen some of the virtual work that we've done. As we were talking, some of your board members and I before we went live with this, nothing replaces face-to-face. That is why your work is so magical and so important. It's true also for meetings and conventions. There's nothing this digital technology can do to replace human interaction, and we have to get back to that. But in this dark period, we are using Virtual NYC as a platform to keep the world engaged with New York, and we've been curating and promoting all the ways to engage with our city virtually, and we'll continue to do that through these phases for those audiences that can't yet travel to New York. And then, of course, PR, storytelling, and digital marketing, hyperlocal and regional content and advertising. And a lot of that is budget dependent. We'll talk about that separately. We're going to be going for some new budget from the state and other organizations to help stand this up. And of course, pulling on the corporate community to help with partnerships and supporting the work that we're going to be doing. And the plan, this is my last slide. If you would go on to the next one, Emma, after this one. The plan is going to be in 3 phases. And of course, the end goal is to get to recovery. But we're calling it Rise, Renew, and Recover. And we're beginning to move into Rise. As June 8th comes around, curbside retail kicks in, and we know this is going to be very slow to start. We're talking to the department stores and the retailers and places like the Madison Avenue bid and others. It's going to take time. We talked to Macy's last night, and of course, with the unfortunate situation with the looting, you know, it's put some of our retailers back a little bit, but they are as determined as ever to get reopened. And we need to support them in doing that, because that's going to be one of the important steps. All of these steps in sequence are going to be important to getting tourism back into New York. So we think midsummer we're going to see more businesses open as we move from phase 1 into phase 2. New Yorkers start re-engaging with their city. We can show the world that we're re-engaging with our city. We can replace a lot of this negative imagery that's out there with images of us New Yorkers re-engaging in our communities with a neighborhood and arts and culture forward bent. That's what the world wants to see, and that's what they're hungry for. And we know demand is strong. Renew is probably going to be late summer, fall. Again, don't hold me to these time frames. This is just illustrative, but based on what we know today, this is what we think could happen. We also are baking into all of this thinking and planning the notion that there could be real setbacks. You know, if there is a second wave in the fall, or even if it comes sooner, you know, as long as we're living with this virus, there are going to be ups and downs, and that's going to happen here and in many of our source markets around the region, around the country, and around the world. Outbreaks are something we just have to plan for. But renew is the phase that we're looking forward to most. That's when things begin to open more fully. And we'll begin to, of course, invite the regions. You see in the graphic there on the screen, New Yorkers are at the core of this. That's who we're engaging first. I think there's a real opportunity for the Guides Association, and I know Mike, we'll get to this in a second, to talk about how you can offer your services to other New Yorkers as we can begin to open back up. There's a real opportunity, since New Yorkers are not going to be traveling to Rome this summer, just as one example, to begin to discover all the amazing treasures that are right here in the 5 boroughs. But as we move into recover, late fall and winter and beyond, pulling on larger markets, greater concentric circles outside New York, the drive markets and regional is going to be a big part of our business for quite some time, as people don't have the confidence to fly yet. And as the flight capacity gets stood back up again, we're going to be relying on people coming from the region. We're already having conversations with our neighbors in Connecticut and in New Jersey and upstate New York and others about creating regional markets. How can we support each other, encourage folks to take this time to really discover the greater region of New England and the Mid-Atlantic. New York, of course, is supremely situated, sitting right at the middle of that. And then as we expand to domestic and beyond, ultimately, of course, hopefully bringing international travelers back to our city. That is the ultimate goal. So I'm a fast talker, but I'm a New Yorker. Hopefully that wasn't too much. I think the next slide, Emma, really just wraps this up. Rise, Renew, Recover is the mantra. The Coalition for NYC Hospitality and Tourism Recovery is what's helping lead the way. NYC Company is staffing it. It is our initiative. And Michael, I look forward to taking your questions and talking more about this. Thank you for allowing me to present that.
That's great, Fred. Thank you so much for that detailed presentation, and also for your promise to have Lin-Manuel Miranda at our next meeting. So we appreciate that very much. I have a couple of questions of my own, and then there were some great questions in our Q&A, so I'll try to get through these as quickly as I can. So first of all, you mentioned a little bit about government. And I know that you are also involved on the Mayor's Arts, Culture, and Tourism Advisory Council. Can you talk a little bit about how that council is going to operate and kind of jive with the coalition, the Recovery Coalition that you guys have started?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it seems like dueling coalitions at some point. There's a million task forces, and what do they all do? And how do you keep them all straight? So it's a great question. So you may have seen in the news, the mayor stood up the Fair Recovery Task Force. That's his large task force that's dedicated to making sure that recovery efforts are fair and equitable. There is one representative of the hospitality community that's on that, and she's from Great Performances. Oh my gosh, it's been a long day, and I'm completely.
It's okay.
Kelly, you'll have to text it to me. I'm going to come back to it in just a second. It's been one of those weeks. I know you all feel that too. But then he also stood up 10 individual business sector councils dedicated to different parts of the economic cycle and the different parts of the business community. The one that we're involved in is the Arts, Culture, and Tourism Committee. So NYC Company is staffing that, along with the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment and the Department of Cultural Affairs. And here's Kelly with my answer. Liz Newmark, thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much. Liz Newmark of Great Performances is representing all of us on that large recovery council. But the Arts, Culture, and Tourism Council is Cultural Affairs, Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment, and NYC Company staffing. And you've probably seen the list of folks that are on that. And we are really working on advising the government on the operational procedures. So they want to know what governmental framework needs to be created to help get tourism back on its feet. So through those conversations, we've been able to share with them our strategies around marketing, the importance of messaging very clear guidelines. One of the things that we hear the most from everyone in the community, and I'm sure you're feeling it too, is where are the guidelines? How do we do this, right? What phase do we go in? And these are all fair questions, and there have not been a ton of answers. So what we've been able to do through this council is to actually distill those questions down, put them in front of government, and help find the answers. So we're here to be your advocate in that way. And then, of course, the governor has his own coalition as well. There's a lot of folks from the New York City tourism landscape that's on that. Not every sector was represented. That was a real flashpoint. But the governor is doing his thing too, and we are all pledging to work together.
That's great. We've gotten a lot of questions about what phase tours fall into. You mentioned that in your presentation, and we appreciate you advocating for us and trying to get a more concrete answer as we move along. I'm going to move to a couple of questions that were posed by people in the Q&A. I've actually gotten a couple of questions about the New York City Marathon. I know that's quite a ways away. Obviously, that always attracts a lot of international visitors. Have you guys received any word about the marathon yet? And this kind of dovetails a little bit into marketing to the local market. Will there be any sort of special marketing to try to appeal to locals to either run or attend to kind of supplement perhaps less out-of-town visitors?
Yeah, great question. I mean, the marathon is another one of our crown jewels, right? Along with the U.S. Open. You can kind of put them in the same bucket in many ways. And both Danny Zausner from the U.S. Tennis Association and Michael Caparoso of the New York Roadrunners are part of our coalition and steering committee, and we're in regular communication with them both. Michael, I know, is one of the most, if any of you know Michael, the head of the Roadrunners, he's one of the most remarkable leaders, I think, in our industry, and he's compassionate, and he, of course, is a dedicated runner, but he also is dedicated to this community, and he knows the power of that event and what it means for so many people in our industry as a source of income and revenue and visitors. And so they have a tough task ahead of them. I certainly can't speak for him. You all saw the news that just last week the Boston Marathon canceled. There are real challenges around standing up these large events where people are together, even outdoors. And I know they have not made any decisions yet. I know he's had to make the decision to cancel some of their smaller events throughout the 5 boroughs in the last 30 days and in the next 3 to 4 months. So that question is still pending. What's going to happen with the marathon? We're hopeful that they're going to be able to find a way and that they will be able to go forward, but we have to recognize that there are real challenges with these big events, and they've got some of the brightest minds working on that and trying to figure out how they can move that forward. But stay tuned and we'll keep you posted. In a similar vein, the U.S. Open as Danny has said, they're going to make a decision by the middle of June. And so, you know, one of the, I mean, we don't see a path at this point, and at least there hasn't been any real conversation about putting spectators back in arenas. So, you know, or at concerts, you all have heard those conversations too. So, you know, we know it's going to be a huge challenge for them to sell tickets to attend these events, certainly at the scale that they've done in the past, while this virus is still running rampant in our community, in our world. But can they move forward with a televised event? And we really want them, if nothing else, to do that and to show the world great imagery of New York. I think that's really important that they do that, and Danny has pledged to do all he can to make that happen. And so stay tuned. We'll know more about both of those very soon, but we are in constant communication with them both.
That's great. Next question is, you mentioned before that you've been in touch with colleagues both nationally and internationally, other DMOs. Question was posed about countries that perhaps you don't normally market to that might be ahead of the curve, so to speak, in terms of their recovery and perhaps their ability to start traveling. Are you guys doing anything to specifically target different markets that you might not normally go to because they might be a little bit more advanced and be able to start traveling before some other traditional markets?
It's a great question. And I wish I had really good answers for you there. I mean, the challenge is the borders to the United States are still closed, as many of you know. You know, the Canadian border was just extended again in terms of its closure. So there, and then of course the flights are all grounded. So, I mean, there are only a handful of international flights today coming into JFK. So it's a tough moment. And when you look at those pieces, you know, it can be, you know, really a source of despair, but we have to keep our eyes on the horizon and know that Those pieces are going to be figured out and they're going to come back into play. But the international markets are going to be the last ones that come back. And that just is a reality. You know, I'm as concerned as you all are about, and I assume you are, and I know you probably are because you're smart folks and you're New Yorkers, about how the rest of our country is managing this virus too. Because the borders and the restrictions around the borders and other countries' permissions for their citizens to travel here will depend upon how we as a nation do with this virus. Because, you know, they can't just say it's okay to go to New York but not go to Alabama, right? We're all in this together. And so we have to think about that. And it's a two-way street. So foreign nations set their own guidelines and travel warnings for their own citizens. And most of them have warnings right now against traveling to the United States. And so none of those have been lifted right now. It was interesting, we were watching very early on when the virus had not really moved into Latin America. We thought, oh, okay, the Latin American markets could be a real opportunity here. While we were watching some of the green shoots in Singapore and Hong Kong and places in parts of China, Japan and Korea. And then of course they slid back, as you all have seen in some way. So it is going to be this series of up and downs that we're going to have to deal with as we go forward. So right now, we aren't really focusing on any of the international markets for any immediate opportunities for all of those reasons. Because we think there's going to, one, the infrastructure is broken, the flights are grounded, the borders are up. So we have to figure this out in sequence. At the same time, however, we are in constant dialogue with all of our partners overseas. So we're using this moment to educate the international trade on New York. There's a lot of travel sellers around the world that are sitting home with idle time. You know, many of them are struggling to keep their doors open, but the ones that are open are also focusing on education so that when business does come back, they can get an earlier jump in the pool and start selling. We are still seeing demand for New York to be at record levels. It's still really high. People are searching for New York over and over again. That's why our virtual content right now, while it is subpar to the human interaction, is really important that people see a way to engage with New York around the world right now, and we keep those bonds tight. You all know it, and I know it. You know, New York has always been on most people's bucket lists. And our marketing strategy has really revolved around this idea that most people know what New York is in one way or another. They've seen it in movies, they've read about it in books, they've listened to the music, they've seen the pop culture, they've seen the art, they feel it if they've never even been here. They have a sense of what New York is. We just have to urge them to come now. That's always been our strategy. Move up to the top of the bucket list, come to New York now, because we know once you come here, you're going to fall in love with it. And you're going to come back time and time again. We're going to dazzle you. Our tour guides are going to show you the most amazing experience, and you're going to want to come back. I've got a great story, by the way, a side note, and I don't mean to get off topic, but my mom's first cousin is a school teacher in Ohio, and I thought she was a traveler just like a lot of average Americans, and she didn't go really deep. And I saw her at a family reunion recently, and she said, I'm coming back to your great city again this summer, and she said, I'm exploring a new neighborhood. And I said, tell me about that. And she said, and I don't know which one of you she's working with, but she's working with one of you. For 23 years, she's been coming to New York, and every trip she explores a different neighborhood. And now she's exploring that by cuisine and by culture, and that's because of the work that you all are doing. That's what we've got to get back to. So just sidebar, I wanted to share that story with you because it's so important. And so while those international markets are down, we have to turn to our domestic audiences, the region, our neighbors here in New York, and we want to work with you all to figure out that plan. But in terms of the first markets that are going to be opportunities, we think it's Canada and the UK. We've already been having some conversations with our partners in Manchester and London, and our partners at Virgin and Delta and American and BA about how we can get those back up. They're eager to get those flights back up. We've got to wait for those borders to come down, but we're going to be working on that. We also have a city partnership with Toronto, and we had a great call with them 2 weeks ago. They're also eager because they see the regional market, and New York is part of their regional market. They see us as a great market for people to travel to Toronto because you're not going to be traveling long haul. So we think Canada and the UK will be the first opportunities, and we're teeing those up for the right moment.
That's great, Fred. We wish we had another hour to talk to you, but we have some other great guests that we do have to get in to. But I just want to say on behalf of the whole association, we appreciate your time. We also appreciate that you guys have included us as an allied organization in your recovery coalition, and we stand at the ready to do whatever it takes to help tourism bounce back here in New York. So
can't do it without.
That's great. Fred, thank you. Kelly, thank you. I'll see you guys on the call tomorrow. And now I'll just turn it back over to Emma.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you again, Fred. This was great, and I don't know if you all have been sort of keeping a little eye on the chat. I mean, if people are really feeling inspired and encouraged, and uplifted by this kind of information, these kinds of words, because we sort of, feel like we're the, the little stepchild of tourism, and we're sort of sitting there going, wait, call on us, please. And so it's, we love the attention. We're guides. We love a lot of attention. So thank you so much. Really, really, it's much appreciated. And we will take you up on becoming a guide. So you have to take the exam though. So.
I look forward to that, and stay inspired. We have a great story to tell. It's going to be a long road, but we are going to get there. And I want to come back and be with you again in a couple of months when we can talk about some progress.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Looking forward.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, guys.
Stay well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. So that was just really wonderful. I hope you all, I'm feeling really kind of jazzed up. So we're going to move on, and we're going to turn now to OnCell. And so Bob Gelber will be introducing Tom and his team to all of us. So take it away, Bob. Thank you so much.
Oh, good evening, everyone. We're thrilled to have so many of you here tonight. And first, let me read you a little synopsis about OnCell, and then I'm going to let their team go into much more detail. So OnCell is a leading digital storytelling platform for cultural destinations and other visitor attractions, connecting people, places, and stories by creating engaging mobile experiences for visitors. OnCell has worked with museums, libraries, universities and schools, parks, tourism operators, and historic sites, among others. Since their inception in 2006, the OnCell team has worked on thousands of projects, both in the United States and internationally. And in December of 2018, OnCell acquired Authentic, a New Zealand-based industry-leading mobile technology company. So I want to welcome three members of their team, three very important members. First, we have Kyle Pierce, who's head of sales. We have Genevieve Hauk, who is marketing communications manager. And then finally, but certainly not least, we have Thomas Dunne, who is the founder, CEO, and president of OnCell. So I'm going to leave it to you three. You know a lot more to share with a group of guides.
All right, thank you. So I'll go ahead and I will share my screen and we'll start our presentation.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thanks, Emma and Bob, for having us on. Definitely, Fred's a tough act to follow, high energy. We'll try to keep it as positive as Fred did. We're super excited to be here. And as Bob mentioned, almost 14 years, we have been serving museums and national parks and tour operators. Today, as Bob introduced, we have a team of folks that will talk to you. See, Genevieve's trying to guess which slide I'm on. She's doing fine. We can go to the next slide.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, Patrick Casey, I saw your very cool coffee mug with the Batman on it. I want that coffee mug. So I know we get that. Yeah, but it was a really great presentation from Fred. Really much appreciated that. And hopefully we can get connected directly to Fred sometime after this call. But yeah, we've been in business 14 years. We are a New York State company. We are headquartered in Rochester, New York. And as Bob mentioned, we have offices kind of throughout the globe, but another bigger office in Auckland, New Zealand. Talk about two different countries, how they've handled it. They, as of like 2 days ago, they had one active case in the whole country. So that's encouraging that they got it to that level. And we create mobile apps. It's a do-it-yourself app builder that you don't need any technical skills to do. Basically, it's for web and native apps, and you can do on-site tours as well as off-site virtual tours. So I know today it's very important. How are you going to stay connected to the tourist? How are you going to stay connected and still have meaningful value that you can offer to the visitor? And we think we can help with that. Everybody has one of these. It can be used in a safe way. It can help with social distancing, and we can help you with that. We've had over 10,000 tours around the globe have been launched on our platform, and some marquee sites like the Met, who Fred mentioned in his presentation, the Museum Fit, New York Historical Society is a customer, the National Park Service, U.S. Forest Service, the Hobbiton movie set. We help them with multiple languages where we trigger the content in whatever language the guest chooses using beacons and GPS. Mount Rushmore, Yale, just to mention a few of our customers. And I'm going to hand it over to Kyle to take us from here on, give you some examples or some other information.
So I'm going to go into, before we go over some of our tour examples and our tour operators and our guides, we're just going to go over the importance of an app. And a lot of people kind of view an app in terms of digital experiences as just something that you kind of download and you can use on site, or maybe you think of Instagram or Twitter or other apps like that. So the important thing that we've been trying to really get across in terms of digital experience is that an app is one of those things that can be as interactive and as engaging as you want. So that's something to think about, and especially in terms of COVID. So you have, again, like we used to focus on a lot of on-site apps, a lot of on-site audio guides. That's a majority of what our clients were doing. And then obviously when COVID happened, we helped them pivot and change to offsite experiences. And we had actually seen some of them actually charge admission for these offsite experiences. So that was really interesting, kind of watching people get that revenue stream back of admission. And in some of the examples Kyle will go over, he actually will show you the one that they really gamified it and started charging admission. So the other thing is that it's more than an app, right? So in terms of digital experiences, you can stay connected, edutainment purposes, education purposes, and then just offering that escape for people during lockdown. So I saw someone write in the chat that, guides are feeling a little bit useless right now. Well, you have so much knowledge and you are capable of having that. I mean, you are your content, right? You're the knowledge, you know what it is. So the good thing about that is, when you make these apps, these are something that people can use off site. So if you do feel like sharing that knowledge, this is something that you can do. You can do it, as on the side for fun, or you can do it, like I said, people were charging admission. So that's something to think about as we go through some of these examples and kind of moving forward. And we're lucky to essentially live in a world technology-wise where when COVID happened, all of these organizations obviously had to close their doors. But one of the great things about it at the end of the day is that digitally, no one had to shut their doors. Digitally, everyone could technically remain open and still share their mission of education and just reaching their visitors in the public. So like Tom and other people had mentioned, our app experiences, it's a do-it-yourself builder, but also a lot of people kind of see an app experience and building it as something that's really quite daunting, I guess you could say. So the one thing that we like to go over is kind of just how you quickly could build that. So you have your planning, your content, your building, your sharing, and your updating. And these are kind of those 5 steps. So your planning, obviously, you're just going to map up the project. What are you looking to do? Are you going to outsource content? Are you going to create the content yourself in-house? Do you have digital assets on hand? That's another one if you're looking to do this quick and efficiently. What do you have on hand that you could content-wise put in the app, creating that project timeline? And then also you have content, like I just said, pull from previous digital assets that you have, and then create content if you insource or outsource. In terms of building, you're just going to add features. The one thing that we normally stress to people is engagement and interaction. The features you're going to want to use are video, audio, other features like quizzes, surveys. These are all going to be really important in terms of engaging people. And then of course you have the sharing, because it doesn't necessarily matter if you have the experience if you're not getting the word out there appropriately. So this sharing aspect is also just as important as the building process. And that's like what we like to also get across to people is there's affordable and effective ways to market your apps and your experiences and reach your visitors. And then of course you have the updating. So we like to tell people, and I like to tell people, talk about revolving content. You want your app to be something that can be used over and over, whether that's, different tours coming into the app, seasonal tours. It's really about what you want to do and what experience you're looking to create. But one of the things we like to tell people is make sure you have some fresh content. And also on our specific builder, because I know some people do often have this question, how easy is it to update? On our specific builder, you would be able to go in and update in just a few seconds. So there is an easy way to create these experiences and update them effectively. So in terms of make your experience engaging, I want to elaborate on this a little bit because we did speak to a museum this morning, and I know a lot of you do tours of museums and places like the Met and things like that. So one of this is really important because this is going to speak to social distancing. And in terms of social distancing, we spoke to a museum this morning and they had said that they were actually going to remove a lot of the artwork because they had to space it out 6 feet apart. And then they were actually going to have people kind of take turns entering the gallery. And this speaks to guides specifically because if you're guiding someone through a museum, if you're guiding a group through a museum, and let's say you get to a gallery and you need to wait to enter, this is where those engaging experiences are really going to come in handy. So quizzes, anything really gamified, videos they can maybe watch while they wait to enter that gallery or wait for you to restart the tour again. And this is what we talk about in terms of social distancing, and also just people being able to use their own phone for that and engage themselves while you're waiting to go in. So we had talked to the museum this morning. They said they were going to add quizzes. They were actually linking out to a third-party site to do some crossword puzzles while people wait to enter the galleries or the museum. So this is where that interaction is really going to come in handy. And you have the surveys, you could do badges, mapping. One thing that Kyle will talk a little bit about is geo alerts. So social distancing again, if you're taking someone on a group tour, if you're taking a group on a tour and it's maybe outdoors, there's also the geo alerts that can be triggered through an app experience. So maybe you don't have to be as close and people can kind of spread out a little bit, and all of their phones location wise will be triggering the same content, and that's really important. So that will give people a little bit of the ability to space out and do the tour safely, but at the same time still kind of have that group tour experience. So again, we wanted to speak to the COVID-19 crisis and, like I said, those on-site and off-site experiences. So I just spoke a little bit to the on-site. You have your geo alerts, that triggered content. Social distancing instructions can be included in the apps. And then of course you have visitors using their own device. We've had a lot of tour guides and just guides in general who have devices that they hand out, or they have brochures they hand out. And this is where this is really going to come in handy as people, you don't have to necessarily touch things other people are touching, especially in a museum interacting wise, but people will be able to use their own device and feel comfortable doing so. So that's kind of what we're speaking to in terms of on-site. And then of course we have off-site. So these remote experiences, like I mentioned before, we had a lot of people scrambling to connect with their visitors and really reach, their visitors, but also all of their audiences who were home. And this is where that comes in handy, the surveys, the geo alerts, just people being able to take the tour on their own as well. So again, here you'll see this app on the right-hand side. This is actually an app that people can do on their own. So this is a self-guided tour of Central Park. And this is where that geo alert stuff, when people are walking, it actually triggers certain pages and certain content pages and kind of leads them along the way. So that's another thing guide-wise that's really cool with the app, is that you can also create these self-guided tours if you want to share that knowledge and maybe make them group tours when you are able to kind of reopen and everything reopens and you're able to get back out there. And of course, offsite, we always talk about interaction because these offsite experiences, you saw people kind of scrambling to watch these virtual tours, and all of these museums were coming out with Matterport videos and things like that so that people could still see inside. And interaction and gamification, that's really going to allow people to kind of, have that education factor, but at the same time, it will be fun for them. And they'll be able to use the app over and over at home. And that also helps with that revolving content as well, because if someone's using it today, you can update it at night and then they use it tomorrow and there's something new, and that's fun for them when they're at home and they're in lockdown and they're looking for something to do. So I'm going to pass it over to Kyle. We did get a question a little bit earlier this morning in terms of what products we actually have specifically for tour guides. And some of these apps are actually going to be, we have 3 platforms. So some of the apps are going to be on one of our platforms, the My Tours platform. That's mainly what we have for guides and tour operators, which is a lot of the examples that Kyle will show. Then I also threw some examples of here on the OnCell builder, and that's going to be more of like your cultural organizations. The reason I put those in of more of the cultural organizations mixed in with some guide ones is mainly just so you can kind of see what you could create in terms of museum content and cultural content, if that's kind of where your tours are being led through, like the Met, things like that. So it just kind of shows you how they set up their quizzes and their gamification and all the other features that we have. So I will hand it over to Kyle, and he'll show off a little bit of these experiences and go over some accessibility stuff.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this evening, and understand it's definitely always looking for new alternatives during this time to stay in front of your visitors, continue to make some revenue and get your stories that you have to tell out. The one question, I was trying to answer questions in the Q&A as people were asking them, and the last one that I got to was, does it work with Fair Harbor? And so we can normally integrate with our coupon code system with your point of sale system. So as you see, as we go through some of these examples, and maybe if you download them or look at them up online, you'll see once you get in there where you can either purchase them directly inside of the app, or you can purchase through somebody's website and they'll send you back a confirmation code or a coupon code to enter into that in-app purchase area. So as we go through these slides and these examples, I'll kind of highlight those. The first one, though, is a museum, the Walt Disney Family Museum. And so they do their audio guide tour and provide that to their guests, but they also do have multiple guides that they allow to go through their museum. And they use this as a supplement as well, and along with their tours and their information that they're giving them. And this allows for a lot more interactivity, accessibility, and making it available in 11 different languages. So this example is a really great one to show how it can be used virtually. You can still provide information to somebody from home, but then also in-person accessibility and providing a safe way to guide through the museum through social distancing and still provide a lot of information to different groups that you may be guiding. One of our partner organizations that we work with is Atlas Audio Tours, and they provide tours in cities all around the country and in different languages. So this screenshot here shows they have 20 different small tours throughout the New York City area. May be somewhat, have seen some of those before, but they are geo-triggered. So it can be used outside and automatically trigger somebody's location. So as you're guiding with them in a guide, you can not be next to them and have to shout, 30 feet away to somebody that's in a social distance group with you. You can have them use the app as a supplement, and you can trigger these pages and these audio clips to play with them into their earbuds or into their headset. And so you can really still interact with them, give your same stories. You can upload the audio of you speaking along your tour, so you can make it exactly the same experience as you were giving in person. Obviously, it's not going to replace the enthusiasm that you can get across in the meantime. And then as you are able to start having groups with you, you can start to incorporate that along with the app. And then hopefully as we get back to somewhat of a new normal in the future, I know Fred, during his conversation, it's looking to vary on when those phases are happening and what is included in those different phases. So we're here to be flexible with you, kind of work with you during those times, let you know where we can help out, where you can still get your stories out there and available to people. I'm sure a lot of you are doing Facebook Lives, using your social media, other free services that really allow you to interact with your guests and your clients still. But this is just another great way to dive deeper into an interactive tour. And as Fred mentioned too, it's going to kind of start with those local people going from neighborhood to neighborhood. So re-engaging with them, getting them to know where they've been living for the past year to 10 years to 50 years, and making it accessible to them to just walk out of their door, have the app downloaded, and start on this walking tour where then they're getting information and stories that they never even knew took place there. So Your Tours is a similar guide that does tours kind of all around the world. They work with different guides individually. So individual guides actually set up these tours inside of this app, and there's different themes for each one. So they're very controlled. And so you can really set up as many tours as you want, or have the app just based on one tour that you've been giving and that you want to keep providing. And then maybe you use that as a promotion to come and take your guided tour that's a little bit different or completely different in the next few months. They use a lot of interactive mapping, from triggering their gardens and their outside locations to triggering buildings. And they haven't switched to a really offsite use case and updated their app during the COVID crisis, but they really make it easy to see, how you can use it on site, how it gives a lot of detailed information, gives the hours that places are open. And then if they were to make these changes, it's really simple to log in through our website. As someone mentioned earlier about Xcode and building Apple apps, I've been with OnCell for 6 years and I've never had to look at a line of code before. So it's really helpful for me to be able to just upload images, text, and audio, organize it in the way that I want, be able to help guides and museums and historical sites that you guys work with, myself, just be able to upload that information very easily and then see that be pushed live into the app stores with just a push of a button. One of our really unique tour guides that we work with is actually a helicopter tour called Ruka Africa that flies around Mount Kilimanjaro. And they use the geo alert triggered audio in a really cool way because it's altitude based along with spatially GPS based. So depending on how high they are in the helicopter, there's different stories, different audio that they play. So it may come into play if there's any really tall buildings that you take people into in the city. As you go up those different floors, you're still in the same maybe geo-fenced area, but then there's a different story whether you're on the 5th floor, the 10th floor, the 40th floor. So it's really an interesting take, a use case. And, these examples that I'm sharing with you, they may not be that exact apple to apple with your guided tours around neighborhoods or inside museums in the city, but they're always great to pull influences from, gain ideas from, and see where other guides around the world are using it in unique ways and how you guys can use it in different ways too. One of our cities and visitor bureaus that we work with, they work with guides all around the city of Independence, Missouri, and they worked with businesses, museums and historic sites and the guides to build out this game inside of their app where you have a normal guided audio guide tour, but then also you can recreate the Oregon Trail and you start your journey as a pioneer, and it actually asks you questions and quizzes, and it lets you see how you can earn badges and actually build your wagon and earn, as you build your whole wagon, you've earned the right to then go on the Oregon Trail and start your journey from where it started in Independence. So I kind of promote that, to go play it. We've had a lot of feedback from people that their kids love it during this time from at home. So if you have anybody you're trying to distract there in your household, we can share these URLs to these examples and links in the app stores. You can look them up in Apple or Google Play. And then one of our guided tours that we work with, who was really looking for a way to promote their paid for tours, it was the Louisiana Governor's Mansion. So this is a way, it highlights the coupon code usage. So if it's you directly looking to charge for the tours that you're giving and provide them in a digital format, you can do that directly, or we can help you promote those to sites that you work with. So if there's 4 museums that are a part of your museum guide tour, we can help set this up so that there's coupon codes for each of those tours, and we can work with you and them on building that relationship to promote more visitors going there, getting some revenue return, and hopefully evolving that into on-site visitors sooner than later. And I'm going to let Genevieve take back over for marketing your experience a little bit.
So just one real quick slide just on marketing and just some things that we've seen other people do. Obviously blogs, pinned posts on social media, newsletters sent out. Some things we see in terms of on-site when stuff reopens, and especially with guides, is promo cards. The promo cards can work for tour operators if you want people to pay for the tour. but they also work it for downloading the tour. So if you were to have an app and you were to create your tours, and then you want to make the app easy to download for your users and for your visitors that you're taking on a tour, you would just hand them a promo card with the QR code, they scan it, and then they download the app right there, and then everyone can go on the tour. So that's another thing, that those promo cards just kind of make things a little bit easier. And then also, obviously you have some of the brochures, and then we always talk about some email campaigns if you have previous people that you've worked with. Same with community outreach, go to where your audiences are. Are they on Facebook? Are they on Twitter? Are they in Facebook groups that you know of? So that's also another good one, especially if there's some tourism groups that you know about in all over social media. So I also tell people social media pinned posts, just because they're right up there on top of your social media. When people come to your page, it's the first thing that they see. Same with websites. So those are just a few of the ideas that we've seen work really well for people and usage and getting the word out there about taking your tours and going on these tours with you. So I will go over to the Q&A now, and we will open it up for a little bit of a discussion.
So before you begin, first of all, thank you all so much. And it was a great presentation, and the products that you offer are really fascinating. But the one thing that live guides always fear is that this new technology might replace us. Because the last thing we want, especially as we're hoping to get back to a new world and be out on the streets again or on the double-decker buses, is that we will always be relevant. And that the experience with the live guide, plus any other materials that will help us do the tour, that will always be there.
Yeah, so we work with both people. So we work with people who, have like the Your Tours example that we showed. That's obviously all self-guided. And then it's guides that actually create that for those specific cities. They work with local guides, and then people can take these tours self-guided. And then we also work with people who specifically do these for their guide live. And the one thing that we always hear from people specifically is that there's people who like self-guided, and there's people who like guided tours. And there's really, from what we've seen, is two types of people who aren't really going to want a self-guided tour because they really want to hear it from someone else who they feel is an expert on the topic. And they also really like to be able to ask questions and have an interactive experience. And then there's some people who just kind of want to, roam themselves and just kind of have their own experience and guide themselves. So I guess it really depends. I don't know if Kyle, you can speak to it a little bit more, or Tom, you can speak to it on people you've spoken to.
Yeah, I think importantly, it's been mentioned a few times, this will never replace a live tour operator. There's nothing that could replace that in the near future, or never probably. So, but I do think, it's a way to clone yourself maybe. So in the sense that, if you're giving a tour, if you had this tour created, now you can basically be there to give that tour 24 hours a day. And you have your markets already, and you can reach those folks, and we can help you. Again, it's already been mentioned, but no technical skills. We can help you with the marketing concepts and different ideas, and you can keep yourself in front of your visitors. And if they liked you on your live tour, they're going to also like your voice or your videos, the things that you share on your self-guided tour. So I think try not to look at it as a either or. It's kind of like a nice to have both is what we think. So I don't know if that answered the question. Maybe any other questions, or Kyle, if you want to go any further.
No, that was good. That was good. Tours being enhanced, that always helps. Mm-hmm. So thank you all so much. Does anyone have anything? I see a couple of questions in the Q&A. Revenue streams and using apps. You just answered a question. So I think you've really answered most of the questions that's been put up. You were doing them during. So again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your time. I know
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was a wonderful, we're very thankful to be part of this. And if you have any questions, feel free. You can look us up at oncell.com. reach out through the chat or through the contact form, and we're happy to just have a discussion with you.
We'll be forwarding your information and your link to the membership.
My son lives in Manhattan, and maybe I'd get to visit with some of you and go down and visit him again soon. So
Come for a tour.
will do.
Yeah, waiting.
Yes, thank you three so very much for speaking to us. It's a really, it looks like a really interesting product and something that I think a lot of guides will be exploring more. And so if you get random guide related questions, I can tell you they will be coming, and that will be from us. But this is really, really very useful. And so we'll be sure to post your information as well so people can find out more. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having us, and I'm answering questions in the Q&A, so feel free to keep throwing them in there. I'll stay online, and I'll mute, and thank you guys so much.
Great, thanks, Kyle, and thank you, Genevieve and Tom. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Okay, so moving right along, thank you, Bob, for moderating that. And so our next presentation is with Jon Peahl of SanSee, and Patrick Casey will be moderating that discussion. So Patrick, if you want to step in, that would be great. So thank you very much and welcome. All right, so Patrick's
there we go. We are unmuted. And one quick shout out to Thomas Dunne, since you picked on my Batman. You do know Batman is a New Yorker in the Bronx, 1939, Bob Kane, Bill Finger. And Denny O'Neil confirmed it in an interview when asked, is Gotham City really New York City? And Denny O'Neil said, Gotham City is a back alley in New York on the worst, coldest February night you've ever experienced. All right, it is my pleasure to have Jon Peahl on board. And your bio, your resume is an interesting mix. Of course, you have a tremendous background in the tourism industry, but you also have a degree in epidemiology, which resulted in your company, the company you are president of, SanSee Systems. So as New York ramps itself up to reopening, not only a question of maintaining of conducting our tours safely for the sake of our guests, but also there's about guides keeping themselves safe as well. There is the cliche that when you're on an airplane, always put the oxygen mask on yourself and everybody else will be okay. So I'm hoping that you can share with us some of your expertise and in developing safe and best practices. And we also know that none of that means anything unless the information is getting out there. And I do know yours is a multi-pronged certification program. So since you're the invited expert, I'm going to be quiet for a while. Thank you. Jon?
Thank you for the intro, Patrick. I greatly appreciate it. I am going to get my face off your screens, give you all a break here, and share mine. Oh my goodness. Uh-oh. Now I'm terrified, folks. My apologies. I may not be able to share my screen here. Okay. Let me give it one more shot, and if that fails, we're going to wing it. All right, guys, we're going to wing it. Okay, so forgive me, this is going to be really awkward. I'm going to have all of the social skills of a scientist here. I have my backup laptop. I'm going to, just to keep myself fresh on what I was planning to talk about, I'm going to have this off on the side of the screen. My apologies. It's going to look a little awkward, but we're going to power through it. So yes, as Patrick said, my name is Jon Peahl. I'm president of SanSee Systems, which is a company dedicated to restoring confidence, to accelerating the recovery of the travel industry, dedicated to promoting safety and hygiene for tours and attractions. Yes, I actually have a degree in epidemiology, but before 2019, who had any idea where to even find a job in epidemiology, right? So I got myself into the travel industry. I did a little detour through law school. Spent some time in enforcement in code regulations, spent some time in public health, eventually landed in the OTA space in tours and attractions. And I actually predate furniture in the United States in the OTA tour and attraction space. My first day at Viator, I was directed to the office, opened the door and sat down on the floor, and we discussed what we were going to do next. And of course, pretty near the top of that list was buy furniture. So I do have a long history in tours and attractions. I moved to New York in 2009, was the director of sales for Empire State Building for 5 years. So I know the city well. I miss it terribly. After Empire State Building, went back to another OTA called Tickets, worked there in New York. Then they transferred me to Bangkok, where I had been until early 2020. We had a front row seat there in Thailand as things started to get a little sketchy there in China. We started issuing updates, mostly internal updates, in January through March, trying to estimate the potential that COVID-19 would have. By April, we were actually ready to launch SanSee and start moving the industry into the recovery phase. So the primary goal of SanSee is to restore confidence in our visitors through safety, but it's more important that we project confidence to our guests, and we can have all of the marketing in the world. We can have all of the safety processes in place. It can be the safest possible experience. We can discount 95%, but if people aren't going to feel safe, they're still not going to come back. All of that means unfortunately nothing. So we are all about confidence and how to instill it. So I have four steps to instill confidence, and it would be so much better if you guys could see these right now. So the first one is communicate. Critical in our guest experience is communicating what will be expected of them and what they're going to experience. And I know you guys have a wide variety of challenges, whether you're acting as a step-on guide where you don't necessarily have much access to the customers until you see them on site for the first time, or in a better scenario where you're operating a private tour and you have unlimited access to your guests. But it's key to communicate what they'll be going through and what you ask of them in terms of safety and hygiene. And we'll go a little deeper into that in a moment. Step 2 is analyze, and that means breaking down the experience for the guide, for you as the guide, the experience for the guest, as well as every inanimate object that's involved in your process and the experience. Step 3 is teach, whether it's teaching yourself or teaching your guests. It wraps back to communication again, but it's a separate step, and we're going to differentiate the two in a moment. The last one is act. So once again, we can have all of these steps in place. We can have the perfect plan, but if we don't execute it, it's all for naught. Okay, going back to communication, I have a quote from the WHO, and this is interesting because it's from March. So by COVID standards, this is almost prehistoric. But the quote is, I apologize, the single most effective preventative indicator against COVID-19 isn't the individual adoption of personal protective equipment or sanitary standards, like personal habits like hand washing. It's the knowledge of how the disease is spread, which is fascinating, because you can wear a mask and you can have your hands under a constant stream of running water, but if you're engaging in other behavior that is risky, if you're taking the mask off by the nose, or if while you're washing your hands you're leaning in and are nose to nose with another person, all of these habits, all of these good habits are going to be outweighed by your risk. So what we try to do with communication is to communicate the risk and how to mitigate it. So I think New York right now, and correct me guys if I'm wrong, but I think you guys are required to be wearing masks in public.
At this time, yes, we are.
Okay, excellent. I imagine that will continue for some time. So it's certainly guests that are arriving from out of town, even if they're regional drive markets, they're going to need to know that in advance. It's good to be able to communicate to them prior to their arrival. Some folks, as we know, unfortunately have strenuous objections to wearing safety equipment. If you can get to them before they get to you, especially if you're in a group situation, you can address that situation before it becomes a problem. So how do you communicate that successfully? The key term we like to use is protection. Rather than safety equipment or personal protective equipment, all of that sounds rather harsh. We like to communicate that as a protection measure, whether you're protecting your other guests, whether you're protecting guides, whether you're protecting the families of the people that you're with today. It's an issue of we're all one human race and we're all in this together. As opposed to trying to come down from the top saying it's the law that we have to do this. So try to formulate your safety script in your head before you actually come face to face with a guest. Okay, moving on to analyze. This is homework for you guys, and you're going to hate me for it. We'd like you to analyze every touch point along the way, both from a human perspective and a material perspective. So imagine what your guest is going through from the moment they leave the hotel until they arrive in front of your face. Odds are pretty good that the most dangerous encounter you have with your guest will be when you first see them. They'll be coming off the subway. They might be walking through Times Square. If you can greet them with a smile, a hello, and a little squirt of hand sanitizer, start them off clean, you have a much better chance of having a clean and safe tour. You want to consider all of your interaction on site as well. I'm sorry, in transit as well. So if are you walking your groups? Are you taking them in a vehicle? Are you taking public transit? All of those have different risk levels and different methods that you should use to minimize exposure. And then of course on site, it's good to know where you're taking them. You want to have solid communication with the museums, with the attractions. Find out what their capacity is, find out if their expectations are higher than what yours are or higher than what the city is in terms of personal protective gear, things like that. So that's analyzing risk from a human perspective. Analyzing risk from materials perspective, you want to think about things like your equipment. So if you are using a bus or an audio tour, you want to think about all the people that touch that and then how you're going to care for it. Handouts and props. Handouts are fine if they're going one way from a guest or from a guide to a guest and not passed around. That's a very safe activity. But if you have a prop that gets passed around person to person, you may want to rethink having that as part of your your tour for a little while at least. Meals are certainly a touch point where you want to think about, all right, who's cleaning up? Is this, as guides, we're in the service industry. It's kind of our second nature to pick up after people and to take care of them. This is a time that we might want to rethink that and allow guests to take their waste to the trash can themselves. Interactive activities, are the guests touching things? Are they going to, are you taking them to attractions where they are, that are hands-on? You might want to find out in advance what what they'll be able to do, what safety measures are being taken at those activities, and then finally, cleaning yourself. Taking care of your masks, taking care of your hand sanitizer supply, knowing how to use that, when to deploy it is key to minimizing risk. So once you've made that list of all the things that you interact with, you can split it down into 5 categories. The first is no action is needed, and that's going to cover a lot of what happens during your course of your day. You want to know, number 2 is government action required? Are there laws that you need to abide by and need to make sure that your guests abide by too, especially if your guests are from out of town? Number 3 is a change necessary for safety? Is it needed for safety? A good example of that is hand washing and hand sanitizing. You won't find any government rules or regulations that say how often or when, outside of food handling, anyone needs to wash their hands. But clearly you may have some points in your experience in your day where your guest might want to sanitize, and you might want to prepare for that, have the sanitizer ready, and know. Next one is the item just simply optional for safety? A good example for that might be if you're using a coach. When people get on and off, you probably want to wipe down the handrails at each stop, but do you also maybe want to wipe down some of the other parts of the bus that maybe don't necessarily need to be cleaned, but it is a good practice. That is something that's based on your time, your ability, and the individual situation of that tour. And then the last one is provides psychological benefits. So this one is sometimes called theater of cleaning, where it may not have any significant effect on risk at all, but provides a psychological trigger for people to relax, to believe that something is clean and safe and open. The best example of that is a citrus scented air freshener. If you walk in somewhere and it smells like lemons, you assume it's clean. You don't know anything else about the place, but if it smells like lemons, something in your brain is going to trigger, this is clean. Okay, moving on into the teach section, teaching yourself. What skills do you need? So there might be some things that you need to learn that are not tour guide related or have never been tour guide related in the past. Things like sanitation, maybe how to clean headsets if you have your own audio equipment that you use. How do we go about cleaning that? How do we make sure that that's safe for the next guest? And then the second part of teaching is your guests. What skills might they need to know? It is not natural for us as human beings to socially distance. So we might need to continually remind the folks that we're working with, hey guys, spread out here. We're gonna talk about X. Just go ahead and spread out and give yourself some room. Or at another point in the tour, hey, thanks everybody for doing such a great job socially distancing. We really appreciate it. Just to keep that reminder that social distance is needed and helpful. Okay, and the last of the 4 categories is act. So how do you make all of this happen? The first is you make a plan. And I think you'll be much more successful if you write your plan down, even if it's just a quick outline on a scrap of paper before your day starts. Remind yourself what you need to do, because we are rebuilding from the bottom up now, and there are a lot of things that we have to do now that don't instantly pop into our heads. So a written plan is a great place to start. Another thing that we found in our markets that are reopening, and SanSee has now done, as of this morning, we've done about 200 certifications worldwide, including quite a few in locations that have reopened. one thing that really seems to be effective is a practice tour. So walk through it. You just actually go out there and physically walk through your tour. Obviously, you don't need to spend 8 hours if it's an 8-hour tour, but walk yourself through the process. This does two things. Number one, it may bring up some areas that you haven't considered, some issues that you haven't thought about. Things like, okay, here's a door. Should I hold this door open and let my 20 guests go through, or do we want to, do we want all 20 guests to touch this door? Are we going to try and sanitize everybody after that? Do I just sanitize my own hands? There are things that may come to mind and pop up that you can take notes on and be prepared for. The second thing that a practice tour does is it prepares, or it makes your process look much smoother. So if you make safety and cleanliness look like second nature, it's much more effective than if you're bumbling around thinking, oh wait, I need to. If you look like you know this stuff, you're going to instill that confidence. Your guests are going to pick up on that. So that's practice. The next thing is to review at the end of every tour, and maybe once a quarter. Just think about what you're doing in general in terms of your safety plan. And then the last thing is evolve. It's going to change, and I am not quite as I'm not quite as bleak as Fred Dixon in terms of my predictions for the industry. We're seeing a lot of pent up demand for travel. We're seeing those of us who've been lucky enough to keep our jobs are seeing a lot of pent up income that hasn't been spent. We are we as humans, travel is aspirational for us. So you can't beat that out of us. You really can't. We will always want to travel. So I think the demand will certainly be there from the medical side, from the science side. We're getting close to having a good catalog of treatments for COVID-19. I think the vaccine might be closer than a lot of people suspect. There are at least there are over 100 different vaccines now under trial right now. Surprisingly, the thing that's lagging behind is testing. But once we figure out how to test people for COVID-19, we'll be able to stop them before they travel and stop the disease from spreading. So I think all of those things are going to converge late this year. I had been saying September. I gotta say I'm not saying September anymore, but November, I would not be surprised if we had all three of those categories ticked off our list. So that's it for my presentation. I would love to hear some questions. Please fire away.
Thank you very much, Jon. While we're waiting for some questions to queue up, I have to point out you're right on the cutting edge, because Fauci announced only today that he's very optimistic about seeing vaccines beginning to appear at the end of this year, which is already several months shaved off the most optimistic expectations that we heard even a month ago.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a guy I trust.
He is the guy we trust.
Indeed,
now,
indeed.
of course, your base of operation right now is in Southeast Asia, correct?
Theoretically, yes. So
yes.
I have been in Bangkok since 2017. However, in mid-March, I came to visit my daughter in Portland, Oregon. My return flight was canceled. The rebooked return flight was canceled. The rebooked return flight was canceled, and then the flights were shut down. The borders shut down. So our operation right now is running out of Portland. We also have offices New York, Orlando, Amsterdam, and New Delhi.
Given the reports I'm sure you've gotten from Southeast Asia, which was the first area hit, and presumably the first to come back, which aspects of tourism have you seen engage already, start to come back so far? Have we seen it on the walking tour level, the bus tour level, or is it still in a higher end?
It's the luxury market actually is doing fairly well on the rebound. But the other thing that's really coming back in as it applies to GANYC guides are walking tours. Walking tours are bouncing back incredibly quickly and faster than I ever would have predicted. Not just in the markets that are reopening, but even here stateside, folks that are able to run tours right now and are seeing a good bit more demand than you would expect.
Great, that's terrific. Now, of course, again, to encourage that foot traffic, we want to get the information out to our guests that we're exploiting our use of our websites, our social media. So we've got our guests, and now we're walking tours. We're going to be checking in with them actually on site. We think of, okay, we want to make sure everyone is well. Do we provide anything that says, well, I've been tested and I'm okay? Or do we put them through some of those rigors? You referred to earlier the educating of our guests, of our clients.
Great question, and there is no right answer. I'm sure there are a couple of wrong answers, but there's no one right answer for that. Communication, if you can reach your guests before their trip, it's a great idea to let them know that if you have a fever of 100 or more, we can't take you. If you've been exposed to someone who's had COVID-19 in the last 14 days, I'm sorry, we can't take you. We'll give you a refund. If you don't have that ability, second best from a safety perspective, not from a business perspective, not from a customer service perspective, but second best from a safety perspective is to actually take their temperature, monitor their temperature. Unfortunately, those infrared thermometers are not spectacularly accurate, especially in warmer climates on hot days. So that's a challenge. If you can't do that, I have a couple of food tours that have come up with a very unique solution. They hand out tiny little spice packets, little envelopes with spices in it, and they ask everyone to smell their spice, and then they divide them up into teams. They gamify it, but what they're actually doing is finding out who still has a sense of smell. And if they find someone who doesn't have their sense of smell, they pull them aside for a second and chat about that and dwell a little deeper down on what might be going on with those folks. So that's a sneaky way of doing it. And then finally, the last way to do it is in a customer-friendly way. We're excited to have you guys here. Hope everybody's feeling good. Are you feeling good? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling good? Just, you guys are tour guides. You're charmers. You're entertainers. You can take this question and make it customer friendly.
I love the smell test, and it's a game, and they won't even realize they're being gamed. I love it.
Exactly.
Thank you. I also, now we've talked a little bit about the prep, going into it. We walk through the tour. We're aware of providing sanitation, sanitary hand wipes, or Purell sort of products along the way. Can you touch upon a second the follow-up? Because one of the integral elements to New York opening on Monday is our achievement of a certain number of contact tracers. So would you touch a little bit on the record keeping that I think guides should be expected to have in the event you get that phone call that says one of your guests has tested positive?
Sure, that's actually fairly simple. The guest name and a method of contact is all that's required to help out the health departments to speed up the process. If you know where hotel they're staying in, if you know what city they came from, if you know any of their travel history, any information you can provide is highly useful. But it's easiest to let these professionals do their work and contact the guest directly.
Oh yeah, but it's about providing that network of information from your database of sales.
Yeah, and obviously you want to try and keep track of everyone that you've had contact with too, because if they're calling you, then you've also been exposed, and second level, you've exposed everyone else that you've contacted since. Let's hope that never happens.
Of course. Jon, thank you very much. I'm doing one last check of our Q&A on our chat.
Sure.
And I encourage everyone to please check out Jon's website, SanSee, I'm sorry, .com, right? SanSee.com.
It's SanSee.travel is our industry website. It gives you a little bit more about the certification process and what we do. SanSeeShield.com. SanSee Shield is our certificate of hygiene. SanSeeShield.com is our public website where the public can learn about what the shield stands for and how it's obtained by the provider that they're working with.
And you are the premier certification site in this field at this time, correct?
We are the first and only that deals directly with, or that deals exclusively with tours and attractions. It's a beast of an industry. There are a lot of great guidelines out there. CDC, IAPA, US Travel have all issued guidelines, but they are all very generic. Wash your hands, socially distance, wear masks, things like that. What we do is we use our experience, both my experience in health and our advisory panel who's worked with us from the beginning. We have lawyers, we have biologists, microbiologists, we have psychologists, we have PR professionals, we have insurance company reps, all of whom have worked with us to develop a questionnaire that is flexible enough to do everything from a zip line in Bali to a water park in Florida to our newest client as of this morning, swimming with pigs in the Bahamas. So our system is built for tours and attractions, and it's built to be flexible and understand the very unique needs of our industry.
All right, thank you so much, Jon. I am now going to turn our conversation back to our chair, Emma Guest-Gonzalez. Thank you again.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you so much, Jon. And we'll be sharing your information with all the people who are attending, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of questions from them too. We have some detailed questions that people really want to get into the nitty gritty with you. So be on the lookout for some of those. And thank you so much. I love the smell test too. That's really good. It's amazing how smell comes into play in so many things. So thank you. So we're going to change order just a little bit, just flip two things because this dovetails really well with our discussion. And I'm going to ask John Semlak to introduce our health and safety task force, which is GANYC's look at health and safety, and Jon and Patrick are both the chairs of that, but Jon will be speaking about that. So go take it away, Jon. Thank you.
Hello, you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jon, thanks so much for that presentation. That's wonderful. And I've heard you speak before, and yeah, it's so much practical information, and you know, we're just still trying to get our head about it. So we have been concerned at the board level about trying to distill all the information that is out there regarding, you know, how to conduct tours in this phrase, which we're getting sick of hearing, but we haven't come up with a replacement, the new normal. You know, when tours become legally possible and viable in New York City, how do we conduct tours? And many of us have been listening to webinar after webinar. You know, it's every former tour guide that is out there that, you know, is out of work now. They're trying to put up webinars about how to cope with not working as a tour guide, and they're giving you some information. And many of them have been about, you know, health and safety protocols. The U.S. Travel Association has done several very informative webinars, and I urge our membership to follow those links that Emma usually posts at various places in GANYC and the GANYC Facebook group for updates from U.S. Travel. Those are always very informative. So we've been trying to distill all this information so that there can be kind of a short list of information. What do we need to know when we go into tourism? You know, what do we need to know? What are the regulations? What are the recommended best practices? And you know, what is needed? And we've created a temporary committee that we're calling the Health and Safety Task Force. Patrick, Casey, and I are co-chairing it, and we've already reached out to some people to join it, both on and off the board. And we're going to be, our aim is to try to put out a reasonably, manageable list of guidelines that we can follow when we get back to tourism. We're also working with the World Federation of Tourist Guides Associations, which is doing the same thing at, way above us. And hopefully they will come out with a list. They've been a little bit delayed in their process, but hopefully they will come out with a list of protocols that we will then distill to make it appropriate for New York City, because of course what works in Bangkok and what works in Portugal, where they're already, opening for tours, and they have tour certification going on where your tour can be certified by the government. What works there isn't necessarily going to work in New York City. So we're going to try to come up with good rules for New York. We've put out if anybody wants to join this effort, if you're somebody who is thinking hard about those kinds of protocols, and you want to be involved in helping us, inform the entire GANYC membership, you can contact us, and the best way to contact us about that is, since Patrick and I are both the chairs, you can reach us both at secretary@ganyc.org, secretary@ganyc.org, if you wish to take part in the Health and Safety Task Force. A couple of the immediate priorities. Somebody asked about liability. I know that comes up a lot. And, one of the first things we're going to try to do is get in touch with our insurance provider and find out what are they saying about COVID-19. We don't really have an answer to that yet. So I've reached out to Tommy Wilkinson, head of the insurance committee. We're still at the beginning stage of that, but we're going to try to get an answer. When are we going to be able to be covered for walking tours in New York? Secondly, we're reaching out to help the local and state health authorities to try to find out what exactly are the regulations, how are they going to evolve. We understand there's a cap on groups of about 10 people. That includes a tour guide, by the way, so it means you could have a maximum of 9 guests on a tour. And if that's are they planning to change that? Is that going to vary by the type of venue you're at? Those are the kinds of questions we're going to answer. And we hope sometime, I don't want to make a promise on a deadline, but I hope sometime in June we will be putting out a list of health and safety guidelines that will be, have the GANYC name on them. They will be the protocols that we recommend our membership and all guides in New York City follow. I hope that's not too much there. Okay.
Thank you, John. I just want to add that not only will we want to be providing health and safety guidelines for our members to employ in their tours, but we're also going to construct something, and you may have even heard it already, referred to the Asheville model.
Yes.
A PDF of some kind that will actually be made available to members that you can post on your individual websites. That will in fact inform your guests that these are the steps being taken, and will also open the conversation that you will have with your guests before the tour starts. So we're trying to get a little pre-theater, theater, and a little post-theater going for you. It's in the works. It's a changing scenario every day, but I think we can be very encouraged in hearing that walking tours came back first, and that is something we should all be smiling about.
I do think it's worth just saying one thing. I mean, I think, as much as we're trying to look for solutions, there's going to be no magic cure here, until at least there's a vaccine. A lot of it is going to be in the communication aspect. How do you communicate? Jonathan, you talked about that. So you're Jonathan, yes? That did not, that John, you go by Jonathan. Yeah, okay, John. Pardon me. He articulated that so well. Communication is going to be vital. Communicating at all the levels of, at all the stages of interaction with your guest. And there will be actual measures you can take to protect your guests and yourself, but communication is going to be so key.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and along those lines, in terms of communication, of course, Patrick and John are keeping the board informed. They're keeping you all informed. So when things change, when news happens, we let you all know. And so things are really, the people, they're working through them. And these are big, important, weighty subjects that we can't just leap into and give you all the answers right away, because sometimes there is no answer yet. So we need to be aware of that. So just, so we ask for your patience, and also just to keep in mind that we're working really hard on it. And so like Jon said, and Patrick said too, if you'd like to contribute, if you'd like to participate in this discussion, please let us know. Okay, so thank you, Jon. Thank you, Patrick. And we're just going to move on to the very last thing we were going to talk about tonight, is that we'll have a little information and an update from Mike Morgenthau about the Tour Your Own City initiative. So take it away, Mike.
Okay. Thank you, Emma, and thank you everybody else. Jon and Patrick and Bob did a great job. So I know we're behind time, so I just want to do this real quick. I'm going to share my screen. We're now in the beta testing stage for Tour Your Own City. For those of you who are not familiar, Tour Your Own City is an initiative that we're starting to market tours to locals. As you heard from Fred Dixon and others, locals are going to be the ones who kind of drive the initial part of the recovery for the as we start to move forward here. So I'm just going to share my screen real quick, and this is not a full tutorial. This is just kind of a quick preview of what you guys can expect. So I just want to see, are you seeing my screen now? Okay, great. So particularly, so this program is open to GANYC members, non-GANYC members, and tour operators. The GANYC, non-GANYC members and tour operators will pay a fee. For GANYC members, it is completely 100% free. And so you will receive, for the GANYC members, you'll receive an email link to this page when we're ready to launch. We're not there yet. Don't panic. We'll send it to you when we're ready. And you will, are you a GANYC tour guide? You would click there and you would register. I kind of skipped a couple of steps so you didn't have to see me verify my email and go from there. So that you kind of get into your profile. It's kind of a two-step process. So you'll get to your profile page, click on the little settings wheel, edit profile, and this is where you're going to fill in the majority of your information. You can add a couple of photos at the top, kind of looking a little bit like Facebook. And then you can see all this different information: company name, company logo, phone number, website, your social media channels, your description of yourself, or if you're a tour operator of your company. And then these are drop-down menus for languages, tours by interest, tours by location, tour type. So, and we will certainly add more if there are suggestions once we make the tour, once we make the site available to all of you guys. There's also a section down below for if anybody is offering discounts to the local market. And last but not least, can we use your tour to promote Tour Your Own City? So I just want to show you how this will populate, not on the homepage. We're still designing the homepage. There will be tours listed on the homepage in kind of a random fashion, almost in the same way that the guides randomly pop up on the GANYC site. But just as an example, we uploaded a few test tours today. So clicked on GANYC only guides. You can see there's me, there's Mr. Amata, and there's Emma. And underneath, at the moment, is all of the different types of tours that you offer. This way, someone can find you directly and click on a tour that you might be interested in. So for example, let's say they get to me and it's food and culinary tours. And it shows me as a guide, and it will show others as guides as well in that area if you're interested in food and culinary tour. Now, the other part of this, which we're still tweaking a little bit, is find a tour. Right now, the main functionality of this is via, too many little windows on my screen, is a calendar function, but as you can see, that's going to get kind of busy. We have 7 tours listed for tomorrow. These are all test tours. These are not actual tours. So instead, what's likely going to be the main way to list these tours is on a list function by date. And we're going to look for a way. These are all things we're kind of encountering as we're testing. We're going to look for a way to have this sort of scroll on the home page as well for a few days moving forward. But there's also going to be the same search functions. I clicked through it kind of quickly, but if you go back to the Find a Guide page, you can see that there's a search bar here, and you can also search tour type, tour by interest, tour by location, and by language. That will be added to the Find a Tour function as well, so that it's not just listed by date. And then this will also start to populate into the site at large, so that users can just come and type in, I want to take a food tour in Brooklyn, and something would pop up. Or I want to take a tour about millionaires on Fifth Avenue, and then something will pop up. And then you can see, this was probably not the best example to pick. Let me click on one other example. So I'll click on the one I know I uploaded. So you can see it has the date, it has the location, it has the description, yummy in my tummy. And then this website is how you would get to the booking site. So for example, I just linked it to my booking site just as an example. So you click directly to Fair Harbor or to whatever your booking site is. You can also link directly to your website if you don't have a booking agent. We'll also make it so that if you don't have a website, people can just email you, and then they book directly through however you book tours normally. We are not taking a percentage. We are not a booking agency. We are literally a portal to allow people, local area people, to experience New York tours. We're going to accompany this with a large social media campaign, as well as a large PR campaign. Jeremy as chair of the PR committee, and Megan Murad as our kind of social media maven. We have a call on Friday to kind of start moving forward on some plans that we've discussed kind of tangentially, but now is the time to start moving forward. So basically the timeline, and then I'm happy to answer any questions as time permits. The timeline, we're going to beta test this for another week or so, make sure we get all the kinks worked out. Then we're going to send you guys the links for you to start uploading your tours. And once we have a decent amount of inventory, we'll examine what's going on in the city, both in terms of government regulations and also in terms of being sensitive to what's going on in the city before we actually launch. We don't want to launch too soon, but we also don't want to miss the boat either. It's probably going to time out just about perfectly, to be honest with you. It's taken a little longer than we expected to get to this point, but we're really close to being able to launch. And now that things are slowly starting to open up, I think the timing might be absolutely perfect. So with that, if I have time, Emma, I will answer a couple of quick questions that are in the Q&A.
Sorry. Okay, yes. So yeah, you can see the questions in there. There are different specific questions about it.
Okay.
And,
one other thing I wanted to mention. Thank you to everybody who submitted a video for the intro video. After we received the videos, we kind of determined that we needed to go in a slightly different direction, but those videos are not going to go to waste. We're going to incorporate them into some of our social media campaigns. So we do appreciate all the time that you guys put into those. So I see 3 questions. I will answer them quickly.
Yeah.
Alice, people have to have a New York City zip code to use this. No, this is kind of on the honor system. We're not going to, say, oh my God, you're from Ohio, you can't book a tour through us. We want everybody to take a tour. The idea is just that it's going to be locals taking tours initially. So, with our social media, with our press releases, with our press outreach, with New York City and Company, who has told us they will help us to get this out there, and it certainly dovetails with their priorities. We're going to be marketing it to local area people, not just New York City, but Long Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Westchester, even Bucks County and close in Pennsylvania, little further upstate New York. You know, we're not turning anybody away. It's just who we want to target in the first few months after the recovery starts. Contact tab, that's just going to be a way for people to email us if they have questions, Lisa. And then Kit, can the tour options be listed without times if someone offers a private tour? Yes, great question. That is something that I need to address with Amada tomorrow. That was something that I noticed right away. There will certainly be the opportunity to list private tours that are not tied into a specific time or date. And then Cindy, will GANYC be spending any money on advertising for this? And is GANYC mentioned of the tour guides who are GANYC members? As you can see, as you might have seen from the website, I already took my screen off. We do have separate boxes for GANYC members and non-GANYC members, and on the homepage, we plan to make that obvious as well. We have not determined exactly what we're going to spend on advertising for this, but to date, we've spent about $400 to buy the URLs and develop the website. So it's been a fairly minimal investment so far in terms of money, not in terms of time. So, so yeah, that's one of the things we're going to be discussing on Friday, but we're going to do everything we can to try to get you guys back out and working. All of us, not you guys, all of us, me too. And that is our plan. Yes, last question, and then I'll turn it back to Emma. Yes, Amada Anderson, our former membership chair and secretary, has done all of the web design for this while she is 8 months pregnant, while she was working a full-time job. So she's due in about 12 days, but we'll be able to make edits on our own. We're not reliant on her. And, but she's done an amazing job. So everybody should send her a very nice baby gift. And with that, if anybody has any other questions, feel free to email us at industryrelations@ganyc.org. We will have a full tutorial go out when we send out the link on how you can upload your tours, and we'll stand at the ready to answer any questions you might have. So we appreciate everybody's support. I know everybody's excited for this idea, and hopefully it will have the effects that we think it might.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, and everybody's thanks to Amada for doing such a great job. I think it's very exciting and very, very encouraging. And I can just tell you, when Mike and I had a sort of conference call with Fred, he jumped on the idea of Tour Your Own City right away. He was like, this is great. This is something, this is perfect for his ideas of hyper-local tours and getting New Yorkers out and about. Okay, so I think that's it. I think we're done for tonight. I think we got a lot of stuff done. I know I've just, full of all this great information, from Fred's sort of inspiring and, letting us know that things are coming, there's eventually we'll be out there out and about doing stuff, and some great ideas and thoughts from OnCell and from SanSee. I'm going to make people smell things all the time from now on. So I think that was really, really good. So thank you all. Thank you all so much for coming and for being here virtually, but all in spirit. And so I want to wish everyone well. And I also just want to make sure to tell, all of us, we know this, but it can't be said, too often. And that is Black Lives Matter. And we need to unite as a city and protest, but wear a mask, please. This is just the mom and me coming out. Everybody's talking about going out there and participating in their protests. Please wash your hands and still wear a mask. And then, assemble and make your voices heard. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, the great board. You guys, you keep me going. They keep me on my toes. My goodness. Emails and Google Docs flying everywhere all day long. So thank you all very, very much. And we will see you on the next one. And please keep looking out for all our announcements, all our information. We are keeping you guys informed. When we find something out and it's going to be useful to you all, we let you know right away. So thank you, everybody. Good night. Stay safe. This has been recorded, so you can watch it as much as you want, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening. All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.